Vincent van Gogh is often portrayed as the quintessential tortured artist, a man battling inner demons, misunderstood by society, and doomed to loneliness and suffering. But what if the final chapter of his life wasn't as hopeless as history tells us? What if, hidden among his last brushstrokes, was a message the world had missed for over a century? In the summer of 2019, the small French town of Auvers-sur-Oise, where Van Gogh spent his final days, found itself at the center of an extraordinary art mystery. A forgotten farmhouse on the edge of the village was being renovated when workers stumbled upon something unusual. A narrow wooden crate sealed behind a crumbling attic wall. Inside, wrapped in linen and sealed with wax, lay a painting unlike any in Van Gogh's recorded collection. It depicted a wheat field beneath a wide blue sky, glowing with golden light. A lone figure stood far in the distance, facing the horizon. There were no crows, no looming storms, only warmth, stillness, and a subtle, haunting beauty. The brushwork was unmistakably Van Gogh's, and yet this painting radiated something rarely seen in his final works: peace. But even more puzzling was a short note found glued to the canvas's back. Written in faded ink in French were the words, "Ce n'est pas la fin, c'est une promesse." This is not the end, it is a promise. Scholars were immediately skeptical. How could such a major work have gone unnoticed for so long? The Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam was discreetly contacted, and the painting was flown in under tight security. Specialists confirmed the canvas, pigments, and brushstrokes were consistent with Van Gogh's materials and techniques in the final months of his life. And then came the discovery that changed everything. Using infrared scanning, experts uncovered a hidden layer beneath the wheat field, a self-portrait sketched in the underpainting and never completed. But this wasn't the usual tormented Van Gogh staring out with intense, anxious eyes. Instead, the figure wore a faint smile, and his gaze seemed gentle, almost at peace. This one unfinished self-portrait, buried beneath a serene landscape, suggested a dual intention, a farewell and a release. What if this painting was meant to tell a different story than the one history has repeated for over a century? Van Gogh's death in July 1890 was officially ruled a suicide, but no gun was ever found. There was no suicide note, and the bullet had entered from an odd angle, striking him in the stomach, not the head or heart. Some historians have long suspected that something else might have happened that day. Some even believe Van Gogh may have been accidentally shot by local boys playing with a revolver. He reportedly told doctors, "Do not blame anyone," which only deepened the mystery. Now, with this new painting and its cryptic message, the idea that Van Gogh's final days held a sliver of hope suddenly felt less like fantasy and more like a rediscovered truth. Further research led scholars back to Vincent's letters to his brother Theo. These letters, intimate, philosophical, and often emotional, have helped shape much of what we know about Vincent's inner world. But there was one letter, long considered missing, that resurfaced in a private collection in Paris. Dated July 26, 1890, it read, "I have painted the light as I finally see it. The storm has passed. Tell them, Theo, I did not lose." This one sentence sparked renewed debate. Could Van Gogh, so long seen as broken and defeated, have actually found a moment of calm? Did he paint this final landscape as a testament not to death, but to survival? Theo's personal journal, published years later, included a haunting line. Vincent did not fade away. He walked towards something only he could see, a quiet end, not in despair, but in resolve. Rumors began circulating in Auvers-sur-Oise about a tiny outbuilding behind the farmhouse where the painting was discovered. Locals called it Le Petit Atelier, the little studio. It was there, some claimed, that Van Gogh worked in secret during the early mornings, trying to finish a painting that wasn't meant for galleries or collectors, but for himself. Perhaps it was his attempt to reclaim his own story. According to one elderly villager whose grandmother knew the property's original owners, Van Gogh had once said, "The world sees madness, but I paint what keeps me sane." Today, the painting, nicknamed The Promise, remains under private restoration. Scholars debate whether it will ever be shown publicly. Some believe it should remain a mystery, like a secret between Vincent and those who truly understand his art. Others argue it belongs in the Van Gogh Museum, where the world can see a different side of the man often reduced to his suffering. Regardless of where it ends up, one thing is certain. This discovery challenges everything we thought we knew about Vincent van Gogh. His legacy is no longer just that of a tormented genius. It's also of a man who, even in his darkest hours, still believed in light. And perhaps that belief, quiet, hidden, buried beneath layers of pain, is what makes him eternal.